The road to the farm wasn't even marked anymore, just a half-rotted fence post leaning at the corner of County Road 211 and a rutted path that disappeared into waist-high weeds. The locals in town said it had been empty since the early 80s, when the McAllen family just up and left, but nobody seemed to know the real story. People whispered things over Lone Stars at the bar in Groveton about screams heard late at night, lights burning in the upstairs windows long after the house should have gone dark, and cattle wandering into the pastures and never being seen again. Most of the stories sounded like drunks passing the time, but I've lived in Texas all my life, and one thing I've learned is this: when enough people keep repeating the same story, even if the details change, there's usually a seed of truth at the bottom. That was reason enough for me to drive 2 hours out of my way and park my truck just off the county road, in the soft mud and broken bottles that collected where the ditch ran down. The afternoon heat was dropping into dusk, that strange orange haze stretching across the fields, and the cicadas were screaming their endless chorus from every tree. The dirt road crunched under my boots as I pushed through the tangle of Johnson grass and nettles, following the broken barbed wire fence toward the outline of the farmhouse dotted. Looked worse up close than it did from the highway. The white paint had long ago rotted off, leaving gray planks warped with rain and sun. The windows on the second floor were boarded from the inside, the boards angled, almost like someone had wanted to keep something in rather than keep others out. The porch sagged toward the ground, half swallowed by creeping vines and the brittle skeletons of old rocking chairs. A barn loomed further back, its tin roof peeled away in places, the structure bowing as if some great weight pressed down on it. What unsettled me most wasn't the decay but the silence. The cicadas had quieted the closer I got, and now there was nothing but my own footsteps and the faint groan of the house shifting on its foundations, like it was sighing. I stepped onto the porch, and the boards flexed under me with the sound of snapping knuckles. My flashlight beam sliced across the front door, which still had a lock hanging from the handle, though it dangled open, broken. I pushed the door, and it swung with a drawn-out squeal, exhaling the stench of mildew, wet earth, and something sharper underneath, like rust or old blood. Inside, the air was heavy. The living room had once been furnished. There were broken frames on the walls, a couch gutted of its stuffing, and a lamp turned over in a corner. What caught me were the footprints in the dust. Too fresh. Bare feet, the outlines of toes pressed into the gray layer of filth on the floorboards, leading across the room toward the stairs. My throat went dry, and I told myself they could have been there for years, preserved in this stagnant air. But I knew better. I followed them anyway, every step of mine matching the soundless trail left by whoever or whatever had walked before. The stairs creaked in a way that made my skin crawl, long groaning notes that carried through the frame of the house. At the top, the hall was narrow, with peeling wallpaper curling away from the plaster like old skin. The footprints went straight to the end, where a door stood slightly ajar, darker than the others. My flashlight flicked, stuttering like the batteries were giving out, though I checked them before I came. I pushed the door, and it opened to what must have been a bedroom once. The bed frame was rusted, the mattress collapsed inward, but the walls, that's where my breath caught. Carved into the plaster over and over were words. Not written with ink or pencil, but gouged deep, like with nails or a knife. He comes when it's dark. The phrase repeated in uneven rows, covering every inch of wall space. Some letters big and jagged, others small, almost delicate. My light swept across them, and for just an instant, I swore I saw the words shift, crawling along the surface as though freshly etched. The air turned colder. My breath came in clouds now, even though outside it had to be 90. The footprints didn't end at the wall. They circled back, stopping right behind where I stood. My chest tightened, and I forced myself to turn. The hallway was empty, but the boards groaned, not with my weight, but with something heavier, pacing slow and deliberate back toward the stairs. I held still, listening, heart hammering in my skull, as the sound descended step by step until silence returned. Then, a whisper, low and stretched like wind slipping through cracks in stone. Go. I should have left then. Should have run down the stairs and back to my truck. But curiosity is a disease, and mine was eating me alive. I wanted to know what had happened here, why the family left, and what everyone in town refused to talk about. Against my better judgment, I crossed the hall to another room. The door stuck, swollen in its frame, but I shoved it open. The smell hit me first rot, sweet and nauseating. My light passed over piles of bones, not cattle, not deer, but smaller. Dozens of carcasses, dogs maybe, cats, their skeletons tangled together, piled against the far wall like garbage. And above them, painted in something that had long dried to a black crust, was a shape. Not a cross, not a star, but something older, twisted, almost moving if you looked at it too long. That was when the floor shifted beneath me. Not a collapse, but a pulse, as if the house itself had drawn a breath. The sound of something moving in the walls followed slow scraping, dragging, circling the room. I backed out, every hair on my body standing. The house moaned again, louder, the timbers bowing as if something massive pressed from the inside. I bolted for the stairs, but halfway down, I froze. The footprints in the dust had changed direction. They were leading upward now, fresh, as if someone had just walked past me toward the room I'd come from. And then I heard it, the soft thump of bare feet above. Pacing, stopping, pacing again, by the time I hit the bottom. The front door slammed shut of its own accord, the lock clicking into place though I hadn't touched it. My flashlight guttered out, plunging everything into thick black. I fumbled in the dark, palms slick with sweat when I heard breathing. Not mine. Deep, steady, close enough that I could feel the warmth of it against my ear. I spun, swung the dead flashlight like a club, but hit only air. The breathing moved, circling, and then came that whisper again, drawn out longer, sharper. Stay. I don't remember how I got out. I know I ran, and I know the house didn't want me to. The hallway seemed to stretch, doors opening on their own, shadows crawling along the ceiling. Something followed me down the porch steps. I heard it, heavy, dragging, almost slithering, but the moment my boots hit the dirt road, it stopped. The cicadas screamed back to life, deafening, as if the night itself had been holding its breath and now let it out. When I finally reached my truck, the engine wouldn't turn over at first. It choked and sputtered, and in the rearview mirror, I saw the outline of the farmhouse, its windows no longer boarded, but lit, every single one glowing with a sickly yellow light dot by the time the engine roared to life and I tore out of there. Gravel spitting behind me, the lights had winked out. But the smell lingered in the cab of my truck, rot, rust, old blood. I drove until I hit the main road, until the farm was miles behind, but even now, I can still hear the sound of bare feet pacing just above me when I close my eyes. And when I pass Groveton, I never look toward that stretch of county road, because I know the house is waiting, and if I set foot back on that land, it won't let me leave again.